So joining us now is Sagir Ibrahim himself to take us behind the scenes of the protest and what he observed while covering the story. Sagir Ibrahim, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Bright and early. You're often our very first guest each time we have a big report that has your concern. Sagir, so you were at the heart of the protest. Can you please describe the mood of the workers? We saw a couple, but what else didn't we see regarding the mood, the ambience, and their grievances?
Good morning, Mas. Good morning, Judith. Judith, you're looking great as always. Mas, of course, for you as well.
I'll take it because...
I think you were greeting me first.
Okay.
Only because you called me Mas, that's okay.
Okay, so let's get to the conversation. It's been an interesting week, actually, because, you know, it's a classic tale of juxtaposing the interest of the government and also the interest of the led. I say this because I was indeed at these protests and it lasted for 3 days. And also, you know, I was privileged to attend the commissioning of projects also within the FCTA. So the comparisons is quite clear. At the FCTA ministry, these workers were out protesting, saying for the very longest time, they've not been promoted. Their arrears, including wage awards, has not been paid to them. They complain that there's always been delays in the payment of salaries. But then these issues, they say they have suffered for years. And they are calling on the FCT minister to ease their, the pressures, because they also complain that he is not making matters easy as well. They had accused him of not carrying directors along. They have accused him of also in one way or the other not allowing for the promotion of certain assistant directors to the position of directors. Rather, they coined another nomenclature which they said, was not even in the rules. So with this on the one hand, and then you see the FCT minister on the other hand going from one area council to another area council, commissioning projects, road, bridges, rehabilitating buildings and all of that. And this to the government looks like, oh, he's actually trying and is delivering the dividends of, of democracy to the people. But then you have civil servants who are protesting, and this asks the question, is it that the interest, of the leaders is being served while those who are supposed to be the led and who are supposed to reap from the benefit of these services continue to complain? I mean, you saw the report, you saw how visibly agitated they were. And so do we continue to watch them hit the streets while, the minister remains adamant? Because he had also responded to their demonstration saying, okay, you have blocked the ministry gates, and if I wanted to sign for the payment of your salaries, how would I do that when you have blocked the gate? But also mentioned that he will not be blackmailed by this protest. So it really is left to be seen what shape and form the next week will look like, because it's definitely, I can say for a fact, not yet over.
And this is just very wild. We had, 17 days, 21 days of commissioning of projects across the FCT, and the administrative officers, those who are the essential, the oil of the engine that sort of fuels this entire entity, the capital itself, being withheld salaries. And so for the sake of our viewers, right, and for those who are just tuning in, sort of help us reel out what the most pressing demands that stood out to you, and what really, besides the FCTA or the FCT minister himself, were there any other high-ranking officers that were there to at least engage them in a more diplomatic and meaningful manner?
Okay, so for their demands, let me highlight a few of them. There's been no promotion from 2023, 2024, and 2025. They say the chairman of the FCT Civil Service Commission must go. And they also say no to overseeing director's position. So that's the position I was talking about earlier, coining another nomenclature for directors. So they explained that you're usually supposed to go from assistant director to director, but somehow the position of overseeing director was created. And they say this has hampered the promotion from assistant director to director's position. They also want the domestication of the IPPIS. They say there's been inaccessibility of the salary portal to salary desk officers. It goes on and on and on. But mind you, on the other hand, these FCTA staffs who are protesting are also different from the set of NUT, the Nigerian Union of Teachers, for primary school teachers who have also been on the street, also protesting on unpaid arrears, unpaid salaries, and poor welfare and the likes of that. So it's been protest on one hand, protest on the other hand, and the minister right there in the middle. But the good thing, or at least something that would seem like succor to these protesting teachers, was in the last few days, the minister had met with the striking teachers and had also mentioned to them that the problem indeed was not even from the ministry, but rather from the different area councils. And that was where he made the declaration that, of course, we can see from the visuals, very dark man was there at the FCT ministry with, young pupils of primary schools also to drive home their demand. And I think it was on this very day that the meeting with the NUT, the meeting with all of the stakeholders in the primary school sector here in the FCT met, and the minister had made the declaration that the IGR of the area councils, about 70% of it will be taken away, or in the words that was used, seized, and used to clear salary arrears of the striking teachers. So that's on the one hand. But for the FCT civil servants of the FCTA, 40,000 of them, they claim, who are protesting out of the streets, complaining that even sheets of paper, A4 paper and printing materials that should be available to them is not available in their offices because they claim the minister has not carried them along, are still protesting out on the streets. And like I said, it's indeed going to be an interesting week.
Sagir, if you put together all the protests across the FCT in the past 2 weeks, what you're going to have is a garden salad of protests, I bet you. However, there's one question I have, after which I'm going to ask a follow-up. How long have these workers been, how long have they had these grievances?
So for the workers, from their demands, it seems it's been years, and this is what makes it another tricky situation, because they complain that some of the demands they have on the charter dates back to as far as 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Okay, now
it's a good thing
hang
for
on a
the
second.
minister, because
Just a second. 5, 6, 7 years ago, but the FCT minister has only been minister for 2 years. So why dump everything on the FCT minister? Because I'm wondering, some of the commissioning that he's done in the past couple of weeks have been to the benefit of the people. Now, when you balance that against what these workers are saying, they've been suffering all this while. Doesn't it point to a rot in the specific system that they are in? Because if the FCT minister seems to be doing good commissioning for the benefit of the people, whether it's roads or facilities and all that, that's also for the people. This rot in the system that the workers are complaining about, if it is backdated, then perhaps maybe would find exactly where the source is, or maybe where the malfunction is in their system. Wouldn't you agree? And I'm not holding brief for the FCT minister.
Too late, already happened.
But what do you think?
Of course. Well, I wouldn't say you're holding brief for the FCT minister, actually. Excellent question, Masino, because I also asked this same question. I was asking the reason why you'd be blaming a minister who came in barely just 2 years ago and saying he was responsible for problems that dates back to 7 years. And they said, well, they are not blaming him for the length of the problem. They are blaming him for compounding the problem. He said they are not being carried along. This is the words that, they kept on using. For instance, they even mentioned that the FCT minister had gone to the National Assembly to defend the FCT budget without a single director from the ministry, and that's how bad the problem is. And there's been a couple of them, even though this issue has been persistent for years, it doesn't mean that a minister should come and not at least try to ease the issue, ease the problems. But he has been deaf ears to the issues that they've been raising. They complain that a lot of auxiliary workers, some of them do have been working for 10 years, 12 years. A lot of them have not been confirmed. So if there were issues with family, or maybe there's, God forbid, a health challenge, they may not have enough cover to provide them the needed health cover that they would need. So because of this, they are saying, well, you met the problems, but then saying you were not there when it happened does not absolve you from trying to find a solution to it, because this is what we expect that you would come and do. So it's really not a question of whether he was there when the problem started, but a question of what he is doing to ease these problems and make working in the FCT a much more easier job than it is now.
Now, I mean, Sagir, this is not the first time. In fact, this is the second time I'm hearing the words "not carrying me along" or "carrying us along" when it comes to the FCT minister. And the very first case was when we heard about the senator representing, I think, Abuja, I can't remember the constituency now, and that's the Ireti Kinigwe, saying that the FCT minister was not carrying her along. So this is the second time we're hearing this. But let's talk solutions, right? A long week is ahead of us. This strike, if it persists, it means that administrative, work will not happen in the Secretariat. Do you see the body language of the Senate, of the FCT administration, you know, leaning or sort of they come to the middle, to the middle ground or come to the table? What would look like a solution for them to get back into the office and continue work?
So initially it was the FCT workers and the teachers protesting, you know, one on one hand, the other on the other hand. But it seems as if the minister may have solved the problem of the striking teachers for primary schools. So I believe this eases some pressure. It would reduce for the minister, and then what's left is the workers of the FCT. Like I mentioned, they say 40,000 of them. I do not know what is going to happen next week, but what I can say for sure is the minister has made it emphatically clear that he will not be blackmailed by protesting workers because of problems that predate his administration in office. So what these workers are going to do after this response is what we wait to see.
Oh, well.
Wow.
All eyes are on
the last
FCTA.
guy that pressed on and pushed the FCT minister ended up getting suspended.
Hey.
I'm not even going to say who or what, but Wike is not so much.
Allow peace to reign, Masino. They have moved on.
We
You
hope.
know, it's interesting because some would say the FCT minister is known for being very open and he's fiery when he speaks. And it's really interesting to see a civil servant say, I want him to even not, you know, meet or address our demands. Let's see how we will come and enter this ministry. We will stop him from entering. This, to me, shows you the level of commitments these guys, you know, are to this cause and how far they are willing to go. And this is even what makes it more interesting, seeing who bows in the end, whether the minister or the FCTA workers.
Well, we're all for this series.
So
We've seen this show before. We know how it plays out at the end.
Sagir, thank you very much for being our first guest. No, you're not a guest. You work here. Thank you very much, Sagir.